book I read by that title, How to Be Rich, was by J. Paul Getty, who had been the richest man in the world. I'm going to write a book, How to Be Poor. And I decided, since I hadn't started this book yet, that I would do this on video for those that are interested in the process. I'll let you see it right in front of you. The very first thing I do is I began to work on an important part of the book, which is the table of contents. So let's do it like this. I'm going to take this title, How to Be Poor, boldface it and enlarge the fonts. Oops. How to Be Poor. Okay, How to Be Poor. That's the title. Let me find something better. Okay. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that a lot of people talk about doing things, and I'm an author, and I'm going to show you a simple way to do the most important thing when it comes to writing or being a writer. And it's one of the things that holds a lot of people back. And that is, they say, I don't know where to start or how to start. Now, by doing something as simple as this, you can actually say that you have begun your project. You have started it. Even if that's all I did, I've got a title for the book. And instead of just keeping that title in my head, I put it on paper, or in this case, on computer screen. I can walk away from this and not do anything else today. At least I have started a book, and the book is called How to Be Poor. I simply would save this to my computer. I can come back to it anytime and work on it. Okay? Because I've at least started it. Now, and by the way, this is not scripted. I'm going to literally do this in front of you because I've not thought about it too much. What I've thought about is the concept and the title, and that's it. But now, you want to talk about how do you write a book? I'm going to start breaking it down. I'm going to create a table of contents. Table of contents. And I'm going to break it up into chapter headings. Center that. And how about I do that? Table of contents. I use 14, 20-point fonts. I start with the introduction. And you can start with introduction, foreword, about the author, or acknowledgments, whatever. I'm not going to do any acknowledgments. I'm not going to do a foreword. Well, I might. The foreword could be written by you or it can be written by somebody else. That is a foreword, which is like an introduction to the book. Okay? And you could also do an about the author, which could be at the front of the book or the end of the book. Let's say I'll do it, in this case, in the beginning. About the author. That's where you tell them a little bit about who you are before you get into the heart of what you're talking about. And for this type of book, it's a good idea to do that. It's a self-help book called How to Be Poor. I'm doing this right in front of you. So I've got about the author, introduction. Now, here's where a lot of people get writer's block. If I did not at least have a concept in my head, I shouldn't have even came up with this concept. I do have a concept. So what I need to do is start verbalizing in my mind what the various contents in this book are going to be. And why am I writing this book in the first place? Okay. How to be poor. Okay. How about I just start by writing the introduction? I'm going to do this. Most of us are quite aware of the numerous books that are out proposing to teach you how to be rich or how to get rich. This book is all about how to be poor. One might think that such a book is not necessary, and that nobody needs to learn anything about being poor. I say au contraire. Again, I am not here to teach anyone how to get poor. This book is to teach you how to be poor. Big difference. Italics. I'm gonna put this, and there you go, italics. Okay, now I've started the book. About the author, introduction. Okay, that's the introduction to the book. I mean, I'm going to write a lot more, obviously, but like I said, I'm doing this for you, basically. So what would be in the book? Let's see. I'm just going to randomly think of things, the chapter headings that I might include in the book. Why the poor are poor. The number one thing that poor people need to do. The poverty mindset and how to avoid it. How the poor spend much more money on some things than the non-poor and even the rich. Why a person can be broke, destitute, impoverished, and still never become the poor. Okay, let's take a look at what we have so far. We've got the title, How to Be Poor by Khalif Johnson, table of contents, about the author, introduction, why the poor are poor. So the reason I'm putting a period in between each title, I'll show you in a moment, is because the first thing I'm going to do is come up with the table of contents, and I'm just thinking of different chapter headings. And basically this type of book, is a book where I would break up each chapter into a separate essay. And the good thing about it is, writing a book like this is fairly simple compared to writing a novel or something like that, story. Because one chapter doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with another chapter, as long as each chapter stays in line with what the context and the concept of the book is about. So that makes it a lot easier for me as a writer, because I can just randomly think of titles that might be apropos for the topic and the subject of this book, which is how to be poor. Okay, keeping with the same basic theme. So what happens is, I break this whole project down into bite-sized pieces, which I can complete individually. So I end up writing a bunch of essays, and before you know it, you have a complete book. So the first thing I'm doing right now is creating titles for these various essays, which will all focus around the theme of poverty and how to be poor. What I have learned from the poor. What I have learned from the rich. Now, 7 habits of the poor and why you should avoid them. That just sounds like a good title. What are those habits? I don't know exactly what they are. That's why I'm writing the book. I will fill in the blanks. Now, let's just do this for. Let me do this. By the time I get done writing all these chapter headings, I'll probably have 2 more pages filled up, in addition to what I have now. But let me show you how I would basically do it. First, I do the table of contents, about the author, all of that. And that would actually be in the table of contents page. Once I've completed this part of it, I would copy it. And that's why I do it like this. And then I would paste it. And now here comes the fun part. And like I said, by the time I actually got through with the table of contents, I would have come up with maybe 20 more additional chapter headings. Okay? And even if I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, I just come up with these things. In fact, I'm going to do part of this in front of you just so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. Why the poor are poor. Let's start with that one. I just start writing it, basically. Now remember, the table of contents is part of the book. That's in the front. The reason I copied it is, when it comes to writing the book, I can just go through what I've already created and just begin writing. I can start at the beginning, the middle, the end. It doesn't matter. Guilt by association. Why a person can be broke, destitute, impoverished, and still never become poor. Okay, let me start here. Let me do this. So that way you can really see what I'm talking about. Okay, well, basically, I think that's enough. I mean, that's all I'm going to give you right now. So basically, you saw what I did. I came up with the title. I put my name on it. I wrote the table of contents about the author introduction. Now, what I would do is expand on this introduction. It might be an entire page. It possibly could be 2 or 3 pages. The introduction, and I came up with these chapter headings, and depending upon how big I want this book to be, I simply would come up with enough chapter headings and then add them towards the end and just fill in the blanks by writing the essays. Why the poor are poor. Okay? And you know, when you write about something that you really know or you've thought about or you really are insightful about or you have some knowledge and information to share, this part is not that difficult. It becomes as easy as talking about it. In fact, I'm not going to write right now, but I'm just going to show you how I would do this. So if I just randomly pick any of these topics, guilt by association, for example. Okay, how would I do this? I would probably write something like this. It has been said that those of a feather flock together. And this is very true. It has been proven that people do tend to associate closely with those who they have most in common with and those who they identify with. Those who they would consider as their peers or their peer group. People are most comfortable generally associating with people that they feel they have something in common with socially. These are the people they identify as their peers. The problem with this, for those that are in poverty, for those that are poor, is that because you are poor, your peers, your economic peers would be those who are also poor. The big problem with this is that those who are also poor are really not in a position to assist you nearly as much as those who are not poor. So what happens is, by associating primarily with people that a poor person feels most comfortable associating with, they limit their opportunities, they limit their exposure, they limit their opportunities to get out of poverty. Yes, true, they may feel most comfortable associating with those who are already in poverty as they are. And yes, it's also true that for socioeconomic reasons, it is much easier for them to associate with those that are in poverty, because rich people typically do not live where poor people live. So obviously and naturally, rich people and poor people are not going to have regular contact in some cases. That the exception being when the poor person is doing something that brings them into direct contact with rich people, or people that are not rich or poor but are certainly in a position to assist them. So this is why we call this chapter guilt by association. Um, I am not in any way suggesting that a poor person should not associate with poor people, or that anyone should not associate with poor people. What I am saying is that we need to pay attention to how our associations influence and affect our life and our lifestyle, our opportunities and our exposure to various situations that could possibly result in changing our entire life. Okay, that was me rambling. I don't know how that would look on paper, but that was just to show you that this is the process for writing a book. This is the process I use. I have simplified it, and it allows me to write a book and just put books out, to do it quickly and efficiently. And I'm very thorough and detailed. I'm very thorough and very detailed when I do put together a book. And this is actually a book I'm going to write. Now, the title that I have right now, the working title, is How to Be Poor. That is subject to change. Titles are always subject to be changed at some later point. But right now, my working title is How to Be Poor. So what I would do, and I've done this right in front of you. You saw me do it. And I went from having a concept in my head to now I've actually began this project. This is a work in progress now. Okay, so I've actually have done a part of an introduction. I'll expound on that. I did this little section here, why a person can be broke, destitute, impoverished, and still never become the poor. I'm basically talking about how poverty is largely a state of mind. Yes, it's also a state of reality, but it's also largely a state of mind. And a lot of people, because they identify themselves with the poor, they become stuck in that poverty mindset, and they therefore never get out of poverty. Okay, it would behoove a person who is poor and truly ambitious to start identifying with the wealthy, identifying with the rich, if that is what they hope to become. So, and when I listen to people talk about programs for the poor, and they talk about their children that they don't even have yet, how they're, that's why they're looking out for their children in the future, and they don't even have children yet. That tells me that person is stuck in that poverty mindset, and that they feel that this poverty is an institution that they're going to pass down as an inheritance to their children. Who says your children are going to be poor? And I'll tell you who says your children are going to be poor. You're saying that. You're saying that. You have this poverty mindset, and you have become the poor. It's not just that you are poor, but you have become the poor, and there's a big difference. And that's why one of my chapters is going to be why a person can be broke, destitute, impoverished, and still never become the poor. And that's why I use college students as an example. Whether college students, whether they come from a poor family or a wealthy family, oftentimes they are equally as broke, especially if the parents are not coddling them the way I don't believe parents should coddle children. I believe they should assist. And that's it. And I believe sometimes, regardless of what we're able to do, we should back off and let our kids experience some things on their own. Okay? Whether we need them to or not, even if we can very easily cut them a check or put money in their bank account, let them experience work. Let them experience earning money for themselves. Okay? And let them experience poverty if need be, because their main focus should be going to school. That's it. Regardless of what you do or how hard you may work for your money, let your children, especially if they are in college, focus all of their energies and their attention on making a future for themselves. And I think sometimes we should back off and let our kids handle their own problems. And if we help them, treat it like it's business. Sometimes instead of giving them money, we should loan them money, especially when it comes to business and things like that. Okay? But anyway, I'm going to go much deeper in this, and I'm not going to ramble about this anymore. The bottom line is, When I do come back, I'm gonna save this. When I do come back to it, I'm going to expound quite a bit on these title headings. I might actually change the verbiage. I mainly did this for your benefit. I did it on camera. And if I decide that I don't like these titles, these chapter titles, I'll just change them a bit or alter them. But the main thing is I have started the project, and I did it all in a few minutes. I've got a title, I've got my name on it, I've got a table of contents, I've actually started the book, and all I have to do in my spare time when I feel so inspired is come back and just build on this book by adding more to any of the chapter headings I've already created. And I can move them around if I need to. Whatever I do last could end up being first. Whatever I do first could be last. And this is the basic methodology that I use to write a book. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but you know, I have so many people that I've talked to that say they want to do it, but they never get started. They say they have writer's block. They don't know how to start. Now, this format works well for this type of book. This obviously is not a novel. It's more like a how-to book or a self-help book or a motivational book, which for me, these are like sort of the easiest ones to write. Okay, I've written different types as well, but this is the basic format that I use. So when I save it, I have actually can say now I have started this book. And see, that's important. It's important to take our ideals and give life to them. And now you have done that. I've actually created something, and all I have to do is build on it.